Hi, and welcome to this K-12 International Academy flipped instructional session. This is Middle School Earth Science Semester A. Today's topic is Lesson 2.10, Sedimentary Rock, and I am Mrs. Fessel. The goal for this lesson is for you to watch this recording before attending the live Class Connect session. After you've watched this recording, look for the flipped follow-up on your Class Connect schedule. Today's goals are to describe the processes by which sediment becomes sedimentary rock. We're going to describe the features in sedimentary rock that help geologists know how it formed, and we're also going to be able to explain how sediment is formed. If you'd like to look at some sedimentary rocks in your rock and mineral kit, here's a list of the sedimentary rocks that can be found in it. So an example of what can be sediment. Sediment can be pieces of rock, grains of sand, broken pieces of minerals, shells, the skeletons of small creatures, and even plant remains. All of that is an example of what can be part of a sedimentary rock. So the definition of sediment, besides what was on the previous slide, includes particles of rock and other substances that are broken down by weathering. And weathering was something that we learned about earlier in Unit 2. Weathering is the breaking down of rock due to things such as ice, wind, and water. So any of those substances that were mentioned on the previous page can be sediment. So the next thing that needs to happen for sedimentary rock to form is after the rock is weathered, then it may be eroded. So erosion is where those small pieces of shell, sand, rock, and minerals are carried away. So weathering is the breaking down of rock, and erosion is the moving of rock. The last step in the creation of sedimentary rock is deposition. The base word of deposition is deposit. That means it's put down or set down in a new place. So during deposition, bits of the material settle in a series of layers. Sometimes its sediment can be deposited on land, sometimes it is in water, and both of those will affect the type of sedimentary rock that forms. So after weathering, erosion, and deposition happen, next that sediment gets squeezed, which is called compaction and cementation. So when something gets compacted, it gets squeezed together. When something is cemented, if you think about pouring cement, it hardens. So those layers of sediment form new rocks called sedimentary rocks. Most of the rocks that we see above the ground are actually sedimentary rocks. And geologists can study the minerals that are in sedimentary rocks to find their origin. They're looking at those little pieces of rock, sand, and shell. So here are some different types of sedimentary rock. So sandstone, which is sample 5 in your kit, and conglomerate, which is sample 14, you can see that sandstone, and its name tells us, is made of sand-sized grains, while conglomerate is made of pebbles that are cemented together with hardened sand or mud. So you can see that both of these originated from different types of sediment. So a little more detail about compaction and cementation. Compaction is where those particles are pressed together, either into that piece of sandstone or that piece of conglomerate. That cementation is when the particles, usually there's a chemical change that causes those particles to stick together. So here's a few more different types of sedimentary rock. We have sandstone that we mentioned. This down here is sample number 10, shale, and sample number 14, conglomerate. And we're going to talk about them in a little bit more detail. So conglomerate, shale, and sandstone are all examples of what we call clastic sedimentary rock. So clastic sedimentary rock is formed from fragments and particles of other rocks that are under high pressure. That compacting is very intense for a clastic sedimentary rock. The pressure causes those sediments to bind together permanently in these 3 types of rock. So sand was what pressed together to form sandstone. Gravel or pebbles is what pressed together to form conglomerate. And clay, tiny little particles of clay, forms the shale that we see here. So in the Grand Canyon, you can see examples of these clastic sedimentary rocks. The Grand Canyon shows all of these layers pressed together. So limestone, well, is a chemical rock, which we're going to talk about in a minute, but sandstone and shale are those pressed together rocks that you can see in layers here. So located in northern Arizona, the park extends 277 miles. So it is one of the best examples in the world of weathering, erosion, deposition, and the formation of sedimentary rock. So our second type of rock is sedimentary rock is chemical sedimentary rock. In chemical sedimentary rock, the chemicals is formed from chemicals dissolved in water. Those chemicals then become a solid, which becomes a sedimentary rock. So two examples from your rock kit of chemical sedimentary rocks are coquina and limestone, which I mentioned a minute ago. So these are formed from a chemical reaction. For example, limestone forms when the chemical calcium carbonate, which can be found in seawater and groundwater, actually changes into rock. Limestone can also form when the shells or skeletons of clams, coral, and other ocean life form layers and are compressed. Limestone is a very common sedimentary rock and one of the most common materials used as building and actually as cement. So the coquina, if you look at the sample below, you could probably guess it's made from shells. So we saw in our example that the shells bond together through a chemical reaction to form this type of chemical sedimentary rock. So the last thing is reading sedimentary rocks. This is when scientists look at sedimentary rock and figure out where it came from and what it was formed from. So when plants and animals die, their remains settle to the bottom of bodies of water. There they are buried by sediments that settle out of the water through deposition. So oftentimes you can find fossils in sedimentary rocks that are near water. You can also find layers, like in the Grand Canyon, if climate or other conditions change after one layer of sediment is deposited. The next layer of sediment will be a different rock, a different color, a different type of chemical, creating layers of rock. Mud cracks are also a sign that an area was muddy and dried if you find mud cracks in sedimentary rock. And the last type would be ripples. Ripples in sedimentary rock can tell scientists that water may have moved quickly through those layers of sediment at one time. So how a sedimentary rock looks can give geologists a great clue to how it formed and what the environment was like when it formed. All right, that concludes our lesson on sedimentary rocks. Your next steps are to look for the flipped follow-up session in your Class Connect schedule, to attend the live session to carry this topic into further practice, to attend Help Lab sessions if you need extra support, and as always, have fun learning. I hope you have a great day. Thank you. Bye.